How Matthias Jaissle will rebuild Newcastle's identity in 2026/27. Here is the disruptive truth behind that rebuild. Newcastle United are not inheriting a pressing manager. They are inheriting a different definition of what pressing is for, and that distinction is going to break some familiar habits before it builds anything new. Now, the hidden detail. Watch the fullbacks in Newcastle's preseason friendlies, not the front three. When one of them steps inside rather than overlaps, that is not a positional accident. It's the first visible sign of a possession structure most fans have never seen at St. James's Park. So here is the open loop. Eddie Howe built vertical chaos on top of stability. Jaissle is proposing something structurally riskier, and whether Newcastle's backline can absorb that risk determines whether this rebuild accelerates the club or exposes it. That's what we're breaking down. To understand where this is going, we need to rewind to where Newcastle actually stood. Howe ball, across 5 seasons, was built on aggression without ambiguity. A 4-3-3, fullbacks supplying width, wingers cutting infield, midfield runners flooding the box on transition. Sandro Tonali anchored it, a deep progressive passer whose positioning let everyone else attack with certainty. The pressing was selective, front three led, and the structure behind it rarely changed shape. It was intensity built on stability. That stability has now been stripped out. Tonali is gone. So is Bruno Guimaraes' central partner in Anthony Gordon's departure from the wide attack. And so is Howe himself. Roughly a third of the first-choice picture has turned over in one window. Into that vacuum steps a 38-year-old shaped not by English pragmatism, but by the Red Bull coaching lineage. Rangnick's disciple, forged at Liefering and Salzburg, refined at Al Ahly. 2 Austrian titles, back-to-back Asian Champions League crowns. A track record built on one non-negotiable principle: counterpress immediately or concede the initiative entirely. That's the manager. Now let's map the system he's actually installing. At Salzburg, Jaissle's base was a 4-4-2 diamond that behaved like a back three in possession. A midfielder dropping between the center backs while fullbacks pushed to the touchline, generating a central numbers advantage nobody could press evenly. Out of possession, that diamond compressed into something closer to a 4-2-3-1, with the front two jumping to force play wide before the pack closed in narrow. At Al Ahly, facing less transitional chaos and more structured opposition, he adapted. A cleaner 4-2-3-1, less reliant on the diamond's rotations, more reliant on individual quality in the half spaces. Newcastle looks like a hybrid of both. Expect a 4-2-3-1 base that morphs into diamond principles in build-up. Lewis Hall or Tino Livramento tucking infield rather than overlapping. A double pivot splitting to create passing lanes around the center backs, and Anthony Elanga or Bazoumana Touré occupying half spaces rather than the touchline. The through line, whatever the shape on the whiteboard, is identical to Salzburg. Win the ball back inside 5 seconds, or the structure has failed by design. Here is where the logic gets tested. If the double pivot is expected to split and receive under pressure, the way Tonali once absorbed it alone, then Newcastle needs a central midfielder with genuinely elite scanning and first touch under duress. A profile the squad has not fully replaced. If fullbacks invert into midfield rather than overlap, then the width-Howe system generated through Hall and Livramento disappears by design, which means the front line, not the fullbacks, becomes solely responsible for stretching defensive blocks horizontally. If that front line, Elanga, Touré, Wissa, is asked to press as the first trigger the way Salzburg's front two did, then Newcastle's rest defence, the shape left behind once the ball is lost, becomes dangerously thin. A diamond that inverts its fullbacks and presses with 2 forwards has almost nobody covering the flank if the counter-press is beaten. And that is precisely what pre-season has shown. Matches against Valencia and Everton produced strong spells followed by visible drop-offs. Not a fitness problem, but a structural one. The system demands sustained synchronized movement from players who spent last season inside a completely different geometry. The uncomfortable truth is this: Jaissle is not refining Newcastle's identity. he is replacing its operating logic entirely, mid-transfer window, with 3 of last season's structural pillars already gone. This is not a system failure. It's a system in transition, one that requires a genuine deep-lying progressive passer and a mobile forward comfortable pressing as the first line, neither of which is confirmed in the squad yet. Until that arrives, expect exactly what we're already seeing. Dominant spells undone by transitional gaps. Not a lack of effort, but a lack of structural completion. The diamond principles are sound. The Premier League will not wait for them to bed in. Every tactical rebuild has a moment where the whiteboard meets the fixture list. And for Jaissle's Newcastle, that moment starts now, against opposition that will not offer the space Salzburg's pressing was built to exploit. We already have an early data point. Back-to-back preseason defeats, to Everton and then Bayer Leverkusen at St. James's Park, with the same pattern, spells of control undone by the exact structural gaps we've just mapped. If you want the film-by-film breakdown of how that friction plays out against Liverpool on the opening weekend, subscribe, because that's where the real verdict gets written. That's the Nexilyze story worth watching.